Hey, it's Andrew Wilkow. Right about now, I should be talking to you from Washington, D.C. You know, dressed up in my studio, presenting the latest episode of Wilkow on BlazeTV. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen. Why? Well, because where the studios are is not safe. They're right in the heart of where the protests are taking place. So, management made a decision that myself and my team should not travel to the epicenter of Washington, D.C. to do the program. And it really stinks, because tonight we're going to have to air a rerun. Now, don't worry. As soon as things clear up, I'll be back. But some amazing things have happened in the past 24 hours. The mayor of Washington, D.C. started referring to the District of Columbia as a state. It's not. She's also decided that she has some brand new Third Amendment power to kick the Utah National Guard out of a hotel they were staying in. Pretty amazing. And she cites budgetary issues. She says the taxpayers of the district should not be subsidizing an invading force. We'll get to that in just a second. But now what's happening is, all of a sudden, Democrats with blue checks on social media think they're really smart. They've all of a sudden discovered the Third Amendment. It's kind of like when Donald Trump first got elected and they all discovered the 10th Amendment. After 8 long years of saying supremacy clause and President Obama can do pretty much whatever he wants like DACA because he's the president, they all of a sudden found states' rights. They no longer referred to states' rights as Jim Crow and slavery and segregation. They were all about California being all California-like and New York being all New York-like. It kind of changed with coronavirus when all of a sudden Andrew Cuomo decided to talk about the 10th Amendment but demand the ventilators from the federal government. Well, under the 10th Amendment, he wouldn't be able to demand anything from the federal government. He'd have to find his own resources within his own state's jurisdiction. But that, I don't want to go off on a distracting tangent. So now the media is in love with this mayor and her finding of this Third Amendment power, which, by the way, doesn't really exist. So here's the headline from Newsweek, of all places. What does the Third Amendment say, and why do people think it's suddenly relevant? D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser is making an effort to have the National Guard troops from Utah expelled from a D.C. hotel. This prompted President Donald Trump and Utah Senator Mike Lee to push back. But Twitter users have a hunch Bowser's fight to remove the National Guard troops falls under the Constitution's Third Amendment. I'm going to read the amendment aloud in just a second, and this is one of the silliest arguments I've ever heard, and it just proves some of these left-wing Democrat blue checks in social media are not nearly as smart as they think they are, and when they discover something, kind of like a freshman college kid whose eyes have been opened by that college professor, it turns out, as usual, they're wrong. Quote, Bauer issued a letter to Trump on Friday asking for the National Guard to be removed after a peaceful protest where no arrests were made. She also ended the state of emergency in Washington, D.C. Now, she can end the declared state of emergency in Washington, D.C. That doesn't mean all of the danger, the violence, and the looting and the attempt to breach the walls of the White House have gone away. That just means she doesn't think it's dangerous out there anymore. Remember, she travels with armed guard. So what exactly does the Third Amendment to the United States Constitution actually say? Well, let me read it. No soldier shall in time of peace be quarantined in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner prescribed by law. When the National Guard makes a reservation and the National Guard pays the bills to the Marriott Corporation, that's consent. No tanks rolled up, no generals stormed in, and nobody was forced to house anybody. But you know what Muriel Bowser did have in her budget? She had taxpayer funds to do this. Take a look. She decided to use city workers and city resources to paint the street leading up to the White House with the line, Black Lives Matter. So, in her mind, the National Guard is a danger, but vandalism should be paid for by the taxpayers. See you next time.